Coahulla Creek Football Show, presented by Julian Peoples Funeral Homes.
Hello and welcome into the Coahulla Creek Football Show, presented by Julian Peoples Funeral Home. I'm your host, Brooks Carter, joined alongside by head coach Drew Carter as we are coming off of our second bye week of the season and getting ready to go into what is our now second half of the season. 5 games in the books, 5 games remaining. And Coach, kind of what is the message at this point in the year? You know, you're halfway home through the regular season.
Well, it's a little bit of what it's been in the last month or so of the season that we have played, of still continuing to stress the progress that we're making, right? We got to emphasize that over what's the result been, because we're relatively an inexperienced team up to this point. And then going from there, that can't be an excuse anymore. And we're able to hopefully progress past that of the inexperienced mistakes, the young mistakes, and hit the reset button for the last half of the season.
Looking at our most recent game, it was against the, at the time, 8th ranked Rockmart Yellow Jackets. They've since moved up in the polls as they continue to win here now in region play. No surprise with that, but game maybe a little closer than some people expected. Our team was fairly competitive. Now Rockmart did have, I believe, 17 penalties that allowed us to kind of have some good field position and do some things in the game. But overall, when you're playing a team of that caliber, I wasn't overly upset with what the score was.
No, especially when you look at it, you know, they had a corner make a really good play and jump a throw into the flats on us with an inexperienced quarterback that made for 7 points there. You get a pick 6. But overall, I thought our team did what we wanted them to do. They went out there and didn't back down from the competition level. They didn't back down from a physicality standpoint. We knew that it would be tough just because of the kind of horses they've got in their stable.
Yeah, no kidding. And specifically, I mean, I remember saying on the radio broadcast, number 2, whose name is escaping me now that we're doing the show. I said it several times two Friday nights ago. I mean, a couple of those catches, we had guys in perfect position. I think he went up over Brandon Manus one time. Brandon was in literally perfect coverage. But that guy's like 6'3" and can jump through the roof, and there's not much you can do there. If our guys in several instances perfectly had him covered, and he's just got a physicality and a skill set that is hard to guard.
Yeah, and we knew that going in, him, and then they had another guy that played on the other side of him as well. But those are 2 of the better wideouts that we'll see this season, especially, like you're saying, just from a physical standpoint of what they can do, making catches in traffic, making contested catches just because of their size and jumping ability. So that's tough. And, you know, it's kind of the same thing too. They broke a couple of long runs where we had guys there, but they've just got guys that can make you miss. And, you know, that's tough on us because, you know, all we can do is control what we can control and be in position and hope for the best there.
Yeah, so let's get into the game itself and look at some standouts here from a couple of Friday nights ago. So, Coach, looking at Waylon this past game, he not a ton of highlights in the passing game, but probably his best rushing performance of the season. Had a touchdown on the ground and wasn't necessarily designed runs the whole time either. He was able to pull a couple of pull it down a couple of times and take off for scrambles.
Yeah, he's continuing to get more comfortable in the run game, whether it be with stuff where there's a read attached to it where he can pull it away from the running back and make a play from his feet. But like you said, we see here several times where, you know, things aren't open on time or protection breaks down, and he's able to be decisive. So really proud of the decisiveness in both of those, whether it be him scrambling or whether it be him pulling the ball out of the mesh on the design runs and the read runs. Because that's a big part of our offense, being able to keep defenses off balance with that. We've talked about it a ton. Chase Ford had a lot of success with it last year. And Waylon's slowly piecing that together, getting more comfortable and confident with it. We saw him make a nice play at the end of the game, especially came off of it, broke a tackle and got in the end zone. So really what we're excited about with him now is we're starting to see these things happen. Now can we piece them together where he has that efficient, solid game through the air and he's being dangerous with his feet?
Yeah, 65 yards rushing on the ground, the one touchdown. That's his first rushing touchdown of his career. His dad sharing our call of the game from that, saying first of many. So I know he's got great parent support. So I know they were excited about that one. But yeah, that's exciting to see. He had his best passing game the week before against Sonoraville with a career high in passing yards, and comes back with a career high in rushing yards. So that is the next step. Put it all together, and hopefully we can see that Friday night against LFO. Wanted to give on offense a shout out to a guy we haven't talked a ton about this year, but he's been a model of consistency right there in the middle of our offense. Senior center Isaac McGill.
Yeah, you're exactly right. With our offense not having the explosiveness and the kind of success that we'd like to, and it's been like we keep talking about, work in progress and the progress going along there, he kind of gets lost in that. And part of it is because he is so consistent and so reliable. You just come to expect him to be doing his job. It's a lot like Chevy on the offensive and defensive lines. There's a lot of similarities there when you just look at him from that perspective. Isaac he's reliable. He does his job, but not only does he do that, he gets everything else set. He's identifying defensive fronts. He's getting our pass protection adjusted the right way. So there's a lot going into it. And maybe his best skill set is he's a really good multitasker as a center.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about Isaac, 2-year starter now, he has on rare occasion ever had a bad snap. And that's underrated in high school, especially when you're running out of shotgun and pistol formation most of the time. He does make really good adjustments going from shotgun to under center. That never seems to be an issue. That can occasionally be a flare up if you run a lot of different formations in high school, making that adjustment. And I know that sounds simple, being able to consistently make snaps that are good, but we saw even on a national stage that crippled Alabama in the Rose Bowl last year.
Yeah, it does go. You don't really think much about it, like you're saying, because you think of it as automatic or something like that. But the best way I've heard it said is Coach G says that he's throwing the ball between his legs blindfolded because he's got to have his eyes ahead on the blocking scheme or whatever it is that he's got going on that play. And he's still having to get that job done. And a big shout out to him because, going into the season, his junior season, preseason camp, he was really having a tough time with that. It's almost like a baseball player with the yips. He was all over the place, and it wasn't a consistent thing either. So that just speaks to his leadership, his resiliency, and his commitment to our team, the fact that he has gone from that into where we see him now.
Let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Our player of the week from this past week was Elijah Faraji, who continues to get some playing time on offense as well, but probably his best defensive game of the season. 11 tackles, had an interception, and is really continuing to get more and more comfortable in this system. Considering, as we've talked about a few times, he basically wasn't on campus until August.
Yeah, really good to see him have that success because a lot of guys that have the physical ability, it's piecing that together with them being able to play fast. And then now he's starting to see that happen, and it's not just dropping back into coverage either for him. I think we had him for 9 tackles, if I remember right, looking at the stat sheet. He's coming up and playing the run like he's coached to do, making open field tackles like we hope, and then also defending the pass, obviously, from his safety position. So he's seeing those things start to happen now. So now his confidence level's starting to go up and, playing at a really high level.
And one thing that stuck out to me, especially in the last three ball games, if you go back for the Rockmart, Norval, and then North Cobb Christian, so really since we started region play, is he breaks to the football regardless if it's pass or run, if it's making a tackle in the open field. He breaks to the ball quickly once he recognizes where it's going.
Yeah, he does. But we know he's got good speed when you just watch him run, but there's a big difference between being fast and playing fast, and he's doing both. So, we're going to see a couple of passing offenses, and LFO is going to be one of them as we go through this stretch run. So that kind of stuff is going to be really important for him to continue what we're seeing him do.
Elsewhere defensively, Chevy Joyce 7 tackles and a sack in the game against Rockmart. He was our leading returner. He was the team leader in sacks last year in a pretty limited defensive role. He was primarily offense, and I guess he kind of came in on more situationally last year on defense. But primarily, I mean, he's basically out there as much as you can get him out there on both sides of the ball this year. And had a sack in the game, and he continues to be disruptive when in the backfield, regardless if it's a run or a pass play.
He's pretty much an Iron Man. I think he missed 2 snaps last week, because we got the injury with Luke Turner right now. So our depth on the defensive line is not what it is. Jackson Millsaps is filling back in there some, but, Chevy's got to be in there. I think he missed 2 snaps on the offensive side because he had blood. And the trainers were wrapping him up. So it's not like he tapped out or anything. He legally had to be off the field. So, it was kind of a toss-up between the coaching staff when we were trying to decide on our votes for player of the week between Elijah and Chevy. Because you're talking about, like I said, 7 tackles and a sack. That's a pretty strong performance. And he's just all over the field. And he's all over the field against quality opponents right now, too. He's not just doing this against losing teams. So really impressive what he's able to do. Speaks to his work ethic, speaks to his character, and speaks to his football IQ as well.
And then one last player you wanted to mention defensively was Jaden Silvius, who kind of saw his most playing time of the season, the senior who came out and is playing varsity for the first time this year. I think he's played football prior in his life, but wanted to come out here during his senior year and was a pretty good contributor defensively against Rockmart.
Absolutely. Anytime you lose a starter and you got a guy that's got to fill in with limited experience, you don't know what you're going to get. And we thought Jaden had a good week of preparation, but how's that going to translate to a game when it's game speed, especially when the game speed's Rockmart's game speed? And we never found ourselves going, what the heck's he doing? Where the heck's he at? He was in position almost every time. Had a couple of errors just with alignment type issues, which is going to come. But this is going to be huge for us going down the stretch run of building some depth. And now we've kind of got a 3-man rotation at our inside linebacker spots there with Jaden being able to give us some depth with River and Branson. Those 3 can mix and match and keep each other fresh.
Yeah, that's big, especially because I haven't seen River play a ton at tight end, but I know he's got an offensive position that he can play. Probably haven't needed him or wanted him to play that much there because of him being primarily defense. So, that's big to have that depth there. So, when we come back, we will no senior spotlight this week as we will continue to kind of space these out with only 6 of our seniors. But when we come back, we will talk about our upcoming game against LFO, homecoming coming up, and then just kind of a few notes about as we transition from the first half of the season into our second half of the season. All that and more coming up. This is the Coahulla Creek Football Show presented by Julian Peoples Funeral Home.
This is your Alpha Insurance Player of the Week.
Whether you're looking for a taste of classic seasonal sweetness or need to satisfy your candy cravings, DQ has something for every fan this season. So hurry into DQ on Cleveland Highway today and see what else is in store for fans all season long.
Introducing BioLite, the world's first IV in a bottle. BioLite is a medical-strength hydration solution physician-formulated to help relieve the discomforts of dehydration, like upset stomach and fatigue. If you want powerful hydration relief, try it today.
Junior's Building Materials, the Tri-State's headquarters with building products for builders, contractors, remodeling projects, and do-it-yourselfers. Junior's is the largest dealer stocking Trex Decking, the world's #1 composite decking brand. Trex isn't just boards and balusters, but a new way to live outdoor and virtually maintenance-free. For all your building or remodeling needs, shop Junior's Building Materials.
Junior's Building Materials, we always come through for you.
Welcome back to the Coahulla Creek Football Show, presented by Julian Peoples Funeral Home. Coach, looking ahead to LFO, we've got homecoming taking place this week. We can talk about that in our final segment. But LFO is a team that is in year 3 under head coach Mac Bryan. They've continued to improve, albeit maybe their record hasn't shown it. And they like to pitch it all over the yard. This is going to be one of those teams that is very much a challenge from the standpoint of they throw it as often as they can.
Yeah, that's a different challenge for us because we haven't seen that type. I mean, North Cobb Christian's a really good passing offense, but they're pretty balanced in their approach, more so than what LFO seems to be. That they've got a lot of confidence in their quarterback. He's got a little bit of wiggle. And tough to bring down and extends the play. So you combine those two things, and it's really tough on your defense.
Yeah, Darian Keefe is the quarterback. He struggled early against us last year, threw a couple interceptions in the first. I think he actually wound up throwing 3 in the game, but they and then out of nowhere threw a couple interceptions in the first half, and then out of nowhere threw like a dime in the fourth quarter. So I mean, he's got some arm talent. He was just a sophomore last year. Appears to be a little more polished this year.
Yeah, he does. I mean, that goes for almost anybody, but you definitely see that with him. The second year in the system as a starter, and they've had some time to mold that system around him and his strengths, and he does some good stuff. But we have seen that he can be a little bit careless with the ball, whether it be with him extending the play, being a little bit loose with the ball, or taking some risky throws. So when those opportunities come, our defense has got to be able to capitalize on them.
Yeah, and speaking of LFO, they have kind of their own challenge themselves this week coming into this game with the hurricane that came through Union County, which is up in northeast Georgia, which was kind of more into the eye of the storm. They had all operations cease from their superintendent, including athletic activities. So they were not permitted to play until Monday night. So last night they make the trip over to Fort O and wound up coming away victorious, beating LFO. I think 40-33 was the final that I saw in that. And so LFO's got to turn around for Monday and play again on Friday night. Last time I've seen anything like that was during the COVID year. Talk to me about some of the challenges of that, because I know you were on staff with Coahulla at that point. I think y'all had to do that twice that year. Yeah,
it definitely is. Coach Brian actually called me last week once they found that out, discussing how we were going to exchange film. And I was like, man, I hate y'all have got to do that. But, I mean, I understand the superintendent's perspective there. He's got to make sure his kids and their families are safe, because they didn't know what was going to happen. And it ended up being, pretty bad with all the flooding that they had. So I'm sure there's some major transportation issues there. So, you hate that for them, and you hate that for LFO's kids that are having to do that, because it absolutely is a challenge. But at the same time, I really don't have much sympathy for anybody. Like you're saying, we did that in 20, where we played 7 games in 21 days. So that's almost unheard of in football, especially in high school football. But you really have to approach it like you're trying to find like a blanket game plan that can work for 2 games, because you don't have the time to rep 2 totally different game plans and schemes and that kind of stuff. You're just trying to be fundamentally sound and go out there and not lose the game, really, with key mistakes and critical turnovers, those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. And especially if you look at the polar opposite side of that, they're playing 2 games in 5 days. We haven't played a game in 2 weeks with the bye week from us. So one thing I wanted to look at really quickly here before we take our final break of the show is kind of a breakdown in our first 5 opponents. I don't think a lot of people realized. I put this together last week. It's not exactly correct now because I know Northwest Whitfield lost. I know Sonoraville lost. But when I wrote this up last week through the beginning of the bye week, our first 5 opponents had an overall record of 20-5. We're 11-1 in region play. Had 4 teams were ranked in state polls, and 3 of them were unbeaten as we entered our bye week last week. That's really a gauntlet when you start to look at it. And obviously, I know that you're not just going to look at that and say, well, that's why we're 0-5. But it certainly contributed to it with a really young team trying to get their wits about them. It presents a lot of challenges when you play a schedule that daunting.
Yeah, it's definitely been the perfect storm for us in a negative way because of what you're saying. Those are some quality opponents. And there's been a few of them that ended up being better teams than what we thought they were going to be going into the season. And tip of the cap to them and their coaching staffs. They're doing a great job. And we weren't able to get the job done against them. And we haven't really, up to this point, really find our identity and play with a lot of confidence. But I'm hoping that, seeing that lets us know, hey, we're making progress and we're continuing to coach. And it's going to start to pay off because that's the message that we're sending right now. Me to my staff and the staff to the kids, and then reciprocating that back to me as well. So confident coming out of that we've been battle tested, but we got to make it pay off.
Certainly do. One ranked team left on the schedule as it currently stands now, that being Ringgold, who we play in our regular season finale. We're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, going to touch on a couple of different things, including our homecoming festivities this week. This is the Coahulla Creek Football Show presented by Julian Peoples Funeral Home.
Your roof is the most critical part of your home, especially in the heat of the summer. That's why OC Roofing Systems is offering free roof inspections all summer long. Families in Ellijay have trusted OC Roofing Systems time and time again for our award-winning service and countless 5-star reviews. Protect your roof this summer. Visit ocroofingsystems.com today and schedule your free roof inspection.
Nature never repeats itself, and neither does Mohawk's Techwood hardwood flooring. Techwood is unique and one of a kind. Your floor should be long-lasting and beautiful, like the relationships you create at home. Choose Techwood for a stunning, natural hardwood floor for everyday performance. More moments are made on Mohawk.
My name's Dan Tierney. I coach tight ends and slot receivers, and this is my 10th year at the Creek. I think the expanded role, after talking to Coach Carter, really matches up with my background, with some of the things that we're going to be trying to do with our offense. We're not necessarily a power running team, so we're going to be using those slots to get involved in the running game more. And with my wing T background, that really kind of goes right up my alley. In addition to having the tight ends blocking on those particular plays, I'm working with both groups at the same time, so it kind of fits my background much better than what it has in the past. The big difference for me was probably going from a private school background and coaching to public school background. My first job up in Illinois was actually my alma mater at Marmion Military Academy. And so everything there was very strict, regimented. You know, you had to be basically the life of almost like a military private. And it was good to learn on at that young age, to play in that environment. So then I went to Florida, and that was gone. I mean, the yes sir, no sir mentality was gone. I mean, being in the Tampa-St. Pete area, it was like one extreme to another. And then we came up here to this area, and then being in a small town environment, you got back into those family values of, you know, family and yes sir, and, you know, a much more respectful environment. So really the difference between where I started and where I am now is very similar. The drastic difference though was down in Florida. Well, for one, I mean, this place is beautiful. I mean, we've got probably one of the best facilities for all sports across the board that I've ever been a part of. And that's one thing that keeps me coming back, excuse me. But I mean, the administration here over the years with Mr. Martis was great. He was a great principal to work for. I think Dr. Sloan's going to be just as good. And having worked with Dr. Sloan's son for 4 years coaching track and field, and then with his experience in football as well, that family atmosphere is still here, even though we've had a major change in administrative leadership. And that's one reason why I'm sticking around. I still get butterflies when we come out for pregame warm-up, and you make out here you make your left-hand turn, and all of a sudden you see the first light standard, and you see the light shining down on the field. I mean, I don't care who you are. If you love this game, if you love working with kids and coaching, that's still going to, you know, send chills down your spine and give you goosebumps. And after, you know, this is my 29th season of high school ball, I still get it. I still get that feeling. I mean, I'm getting it right now just thinking about it. And that's something that I keep telling myself, well, maybe I'll go one more year, maybe I'll go one more. As long as I keep getting that feeling on Friday nights, I'm going to keep doing this as long as I can. I mean, I've been blessed with having a very understanding family. I'll never forget, you know, years ago when I first got married, it was, well, don't you have to go somewhere on a Friday night? Even though we played on Saturdays because our stadium didn't have lights. She was like, oh, don't you have somewhere to scout? Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, go. Everything was, go ahead, do what you have to do. We'll be here when you get back. And, you know, she took care of everything. And then over the years, now my oldest son, he's 22. He's coaching golf now at the high school level, so that's his passion now. My next one, who's going to be a freshman at Lee this year, you know, we got lucky. He was able to get he signed to play baseball there, and you know, we've just been fortunate to have a very, very strong support system in place for everything that we've needed to do as a family, whether it's my in-laws, my parents, community members. I mean, when you have 5 kids that all have to be in certain places at certain times, sometimes you got to say, hey, neighbor, and, you know, I mean, can you take my son down to this place or what?
Welcome back to the Coahulla Creek Football Show, presented by Julian Peoples Funeral Home. Coach, before we talk about homecoming, I did want to talk about an announcement that actually came out today. And, you know, with the way that the new power ranking is constructed, you don't have to go all Jim Mora on me here because I know we've yet to win a game, but playoffs are still on the table if we can handle business here in the next few weeks. It's not out of the realm of possibility with the new power ranking system. Georgia High School announces that they're actually delaying the first round of the playoffs by a week. I guess they actually had some leeway to do that with the way that the postseason was constructed. I think there was going to be a bye week after the third round, anyways, because of the availability of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But any thoughts on that?
I mean, definitely applaud to GHSA. It seems like they're always on top of things and then always forward thinking when it comes to that kind of stuff. So almost seemed like it was effortless with how they were able to come out and make that announcement. You know, and it's player player safety and making sure the schools are okay seems to be their top priority when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, and I didn't mention why they did it. They did it because I think I saw as of this morning, 45 games had not been played due to the hurricane. Some down near like the Valdosta area where the hurricane first made landfall through Florida, and then others up in kind of northeast Georgia near North Carolina where all this flooding is occurring. Yeah, is occurring. And in some instance, we even saw like Lovett School and Westminster, whose entire stadiums were flooded out. So a lot of football still to be played. Now they have this extra week at the end of the regular season to make those games up to determine appropriate playoff games and seeding. But last thing I wanted to touch on was homecoming this week. Always an exciting time. I think LFO was our homecoming opponent last year, but this is certainly fun, and I think there's some traditions that are starting to be built in with homecoming. We've got the Crackle at the Creek on Thursday. I think this is probably your 6th or 7th go around with homecomings at the Creek. Talk to me about talk to me about some of the traditions and stuff that our players will be involved in this week.
Well, you mentioned Crackle at the Creek. That's an awesome event with the pep rally. It kind of coincides with our kickoff event that we do. So we've got one to start the season. We've got one mid-season. It's a great community event that brings everything that is involved in our school and everything that's involved on Friday nights together, and brings people here and puts all that together. So it's awesome. And then Wednesday we'll have they do the homecoming assembly in the morning. But then we have the parade after that where all our feeder schools will be on campus. We have tons of parents here. So it's a big day as well. And it's really awesome to see because it's a shared vision with what's going on in our school with what we're trying to do as a program too. We're trying to give our kids the best high school football experience possible. Well, these things in our school contribute to that in a major way, because that's what the kids talk about. They're not going to talk about the A that they got in their math class or something like that. It's these events and these are the things that make the memories and make high school so special.
Yeah, it should be an exciting time this week. We will, instead of our usual thing that we do at halftime, we will actually air the homecoming crowning of the Queen and King at halftime over the Coahulla Creek Sports Network this week. So you can hear who our new homecoming queen is going to be this year over the airwaves. So always an exciting time at the Creek, but with homecoming. Coach, thank you for your time. For Drew Carter, I am Brooks Carter. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Coahulla Creek Football Show presented by Julian People's Funeral Home. We'll be right back here, same time, same place next week. We'll see you then.